Echoes of Grace, the will that shut Shiloh Baptist. In the heart of Macon, Georgia, where the humid air clung to everything like a half-forgotten prayer, stood Shiloh Baptist Church, a sprawling brick edifice with a steeple that pierced the loud oak canopy like a finger pointing to heaven. Built in 1927 with sweat and sermons, it had weathered the Great Depression, the Civil Rights marches, and more than a few scandals involving the choir director's moonshine still. But nothing tested its foundation like the summer of 2018 when Hurricane Irma ripped through middle Georgia, leaving a trail of uprooted magnolias and shattered stained glass windows. That was the storm that broke more than roofs. It broke Evelyn Hargrove's body, and eventually the illusions of the flock she had served for half a century. Evelyn was 73 when the hurricane hit, a wiry woman with silver hair and a sensible bun and eyes the color of sweet tea, warm but sharp enough to spot a lie from the back pew. Born in 1945 to sharecroppers on the outskirts of town, she'd grown up singing gospel hymns in cotton fields, her voice a clear soprano that could harmonize with the mockingbirds. By 18, she'd married Tommy Hargrove, a lanky mechanic with a laugh like gravel under tires. Together, they built a life in a shotgun house on Elm Street. No kids of their own, Tommy's war wounds from Korea had seen to that. But Evelyn filled the void with the church. Shiloh became her family, her purpose, her everything. For 50 years, Evelyn poured herself into those red brick walls. She was there at dawn on Sundays, brewing community coffee in the fellowship hall's ancient percolator, the steam rising like incense. She'd scrub the pews until they gleamed, her arthritic knuckles raw from lemon pledge. And organized potlucks were her ambrosia salad, flaked coconut, crushed pineapple, and a whisper of bourbon for the angels, earned wolf whistles from the deacons. During the lean 80s, when the textile mill shuttered and half the congregation lined up at the food bank, Evelyn tied 10% of Tommy's paycheck without flinching. "The Lord provides," she'd say, slipping an extra 20 into the plate for the widow Jenkins, whose husband had drunk himself into an early grave. Tommy passed in 2005, felled by a heart attack in the garage mid-oil change. Then Evelyn buried him under a dogwood tree in Royal Cemetery, then doubled down on Shiloh. She joined the altar guild, stitching paraments in gold thread by lamplight. Led the women's Bible study, dissecting Proverbs with the precision of a Southern belle wielding a fan, and mentored the youth group, teaching rambunctious teens like little Marcus Thibodeau how to tie a Windsor knot, pray without showboating. Marcus, now a deacon himself, remembered her pulling him aside after a fist fight in the parking lot. "Boy, God's got bigger battles than your pride. Save your fists for the devil." But unity, like sweet tea left too long in the sun, sours. In the spring of 2017, Shiloh launched its Sanctuary of Hope expansion, a gleaming family life center with a gym, coffee bar, and LED screens for sermons streamed to shut-ins. The capital campaign ballooned to $2.5 million, with pledge cards passed like Holy Writ. Evelyn signed for $50,000 over 5 years, cashing in Tommy's old IRA and dipping into her savings from decades of frugal living. "It's for the children," she told her neighbor, Mrs. Lula May, fanning herself on the porch swing. "They need a place to shoot hoops without the devil whispering through chain-link fences." The hurricane came on September 11, 2018, a Category 1 beast that dumped 12 inches of rain and winds that howled like lost souls. Evelyn's house on Elm Street, with its tin roof and sagging porch, held firm until a rogue oak limb crashed through the kitchen, pinning her leg under splintered cabinets. She lay there for hours, the storm's roar drowning her cries, until paramedics pried her free. Fractured femur, shattered pelvis, internal bleeding. The doctors at Coliseum Medical Center shook their heads. "Miracle, she made it," one said. But Evelyn knew better. It was prayer that carried her through the surgeries, the rehab, the endless nights of morphine haze. Discharged after 3 months, Evelyn returned to a house that smelled of mildew and regret. The church van dropped her off with the wheelchair and a full pan green bean casserole. "From the sisters," the driver said, avoiding her eyes. But the visits, they trickled to a drip. Pastor Whitmore stopped by once, Bible in hand, to pray over her bandaged leg. "The Lord's testing your faith, Sister Eve," he intoned, then launched into a pitch for the capital campaign. "Your pledge, it's a seed for eternity." Evelyn, propped on pillows, forced a smile and wrote a check for $1,000, her last from the emergency fund. The deaconesses came next, a rotating trio of pearl clutchers who brought deviled eggs and gossip. "Bless your heart, Evelyn, you lookin' peaked," said Gladys Pruitt, fanning herself with the church bulletin. They prayed, they cooed, but when Evelyn asked for a ride to Sunday service, just to hear the word, they demurred. "The van's full with the youth choir," one said. Another, "It's a long haul, sugar, and the ramps ain't fixed yet." Marcus Thibodeau, now married with the toddler, popped in twice, mowing her lawn and fixing the leaky faucet. "You held my hand through my mama's funeral, Miss Eve," he said, sweat beading on his brow. "Ain't nothing." But even he faded as his shift at the art plant stretched to overtime. Months blurred into a year. Evelyn's world shrunk to her front room, a hospital bed by the window, a stack of dog-eared Louis L'Amour paperbacks, and a TV tuned to TBN reruns. The pain was a constant companion, gnawing at her bones like termites in pine. Morphine dulled the edges, but not the loneliness. Bills piled up. Medicare covered the bones, but not the home health aide who came thrice weekly, or the Meals on Wheels that tasted like regret. She sold Tommy's toolbox on eBay for $300, enough for a month's rent on the aide. The church's prayer chain? Silent. The prayer requests she whispered into her flip phone were unanswered. No cards, no casseroles, and no "How's our sister Eve" in the Sunday announcements. By fall of 2019, Evelyn weighed 90 pounds soaking wet. Her once vibrant face a map of wrinkles and weariness. Cancer crept in unannounced. "Pancreatic, stage 4, the oncologist said, his voice soft as cotton. 6 months, maybe less." She nodded, thinking of the prodigal son. Not the parable, but the pig slop. Was this her reward? 50 years of service and Shiloh treated her like yesterday's bulletin, recycled and forgotten? But Evelyn Hargrove wasn't one to wallow. She called her lawyer, old Harlan Beecham, a rumpled Baptist who handled her will since Tommy's passing. Harlan arrived on a drizzly Tuesday, his briefcase stuffed with forms and a thermos of chicory coffee. They sat at her kitchen table, scarred from decades of family suppers that never were. "Evelyn," he said, adjusting his bifocals, "you sure about this? It's unconventional." She sipped her tea, steady as a deacon's handshake. "Harlan, I've given Shiloh my sweat, my savings, my Sundays. They built that fancy center on my dime and left me to rot. The Bible says a man's heart is revealed in adversity. Theirs showed ugly." The will had started simple: house to the church for a parsonage, savings to the youth fund, heirlooms to Marcus and a few faithful cousins. Now, overhaul. To Pastor Elias Whitmore, $1. "For the collection plate you forgot to pass my way." To Assistant Pastor Timothy Hale, Elias's oily-haired protege, all smiles and sermons on tithing, $1. "For the prosperity gospel that enriched you, but not me." To Shiloh Baptist Church, Inc., $1. "With prayers for the widows you overlook," per James 1:27. The bulk, $187,000 from her estate, plus the house sale, went to the Harriet Tubman Center for Women's Empowerment, a Black-led nonprofit in Atlanta that fed, sheltered, and educated single mothers fleeing abuse. Evelyn had discovered it through a PBS special during her rehab days, moved by stories of women like her sharecropper mama, strong, unseen, unbreakable. "They do God's work without the fanfare," she told Harlan. Shiloh could learn from that. And the kicker? To ensure her soundness of mind, those morphine-fueled nights might raise eyebrows. She'd recorded video, propped in bed, Bible open to Psalms 37. "Fret not yourself because of evildoers, for they will soon fade like the grass." She recited the will clause by clause, her voice cracking only once when she spoke of the hurricane limb. "God spared me for a reason. This is it." Harlan notarized each one, his signature a shield against contest. Word spread like kudzu. Mrs. Lula May, eavesdropping from the azaleas, whispered to Gladys Pruitt at the Piggly Wiggly. Gladys told the altar guild over lemon bars. At Christmas, the church buzzed. Pastor Elias cornered Harlan at the Rotary Club. "Sister Eve is not right in the head, Harlan. That dope's got her seeing demons." Harlan, sipping his bourbon, smiled thinly. "She's sharper than a tack, Elias, and meaner than a wet hen crossed." Evelyn lingered through 2020. The pandemic, a cruel coda. COVID shuttered Shiloh, but the Sanctuary of Hope glowed with virtual services. Tides pouring in via Venmo, the gym rented to CrossFit influencers. Evelyn watched from her bed, oxygen mask fogging her glasses, as Elias preached on blessings in isolation. She chuckled. A dry rattle. Blessings for who? Her aide, a sturdy Haitian woman named Marie, became her lifeline. Prayers in Creole, gumbo on Sundays, stories of Port-au-Prince that made Evelyn's Georgia dirt feel vast. In March 2021, as the dogwoods bloomed pink against the azaleas, Evelyn slipped away. No fanfare. Just Marie holding her hand, Psalms 23 on her lips. The obituary in the Macon Telegraph was brief. Beloved servant of Shiloh Baptist, devoted to family and faith. No mention of the storm, the silence, the will that simmered like Brunswick stew. The funeral was packed, Shiloh's pews groaning under the weight of remorse and curiosity. Pastor Elias eulogized with flourishes. Sister Evelyn was the salt of the earth, the light on our hill. He glossed over the bedridden years, the unanswered calls. Marcus Thibodeau sat in the front row, his toddler on his knee, tears carving tracks down his dark cheeks. Cousins from Albany clustered in the back, fanning themselves with programs. Mrs. Lula May whispered to Gladys, heard she cut them out cold. The graveside service at Rose Hill was mercifully short, damp earth swallowing the pine box beside Tommy, azaleas nodding like mourners. And 2 days later, the reading. Harlan's office on Mulberry Street was a relic. Mahogany desk scarred by cigar burns, ceiling fan whirring like a judgmental aunt. He had invited the interested parties, Elias and Timothy in ill-fitting suits, reeking of Old Spice, a deacon board representative fidgety with his tie, Marcus and a smattering of cousins. The air was thick as sorghum syrup. Harlan cleared his throat, spectacles perched on his nose. Evelyn Hargrove, in sound mind and body, the time of execution, directs as follows. He read the bequests. $5,000 to Marie for The Hands of Christ. $10,000 to Marcus for The Boy Who Remembered. Cousins got modest sums, enough for a used Buick, a cruise to Cozumel, and the church. Elias leaned forward, expectant. Timothy smirked as if $50,000 was his divine right. To Elias Whitmore, senior pastor of Shiloh Baptist Church, $1 United States dollar. A pause. Elias blinked. What? Harlan continued, voice steady. For the collection plate you forgot to pass my way during my time of need. Timothy shifted. Harlan pressed on. To Timothy Hale, assistant pastor, for the prosperity gospel that enriched you but not the least of these. The room crackled. Gladys, who'd snuck in as moral support, gasped. Marcus bit his lip to stifle a snort. And to Shiloh Baptist Church, Inc., its board affiliates and successors, $1 United States dollar, with prayers for the widows and orphans you overlook, as instructed in James chapter 1, verse 27. Elias's face bloomed crimson, a Georgia peach gone rotten. This is outrageous. Evelyn was delirious, on drugs. We'll contest it. Harlan slid a folder across the desk. Videos, notarized thrice, psych eval from Dr. Patel dated February, ironclad Elias. He knew exactly what she was doing. Timothy sputtered. But the sanctuary, the pledges, she promised. Promises are like possum stew, best judged by the meat, not the hype. Evelyn gave plenty. You took, then turned away. The deacon rep cleared his throat. The center, it's half built. This'll bankrupt us. Marcus couldn't hold it. A chuckle escaped, then a full-bellied laugh, echoing off the oak panels. His cousins joined in. A ripple of snickers turned to guffaws. Even Mrs. Lula May tittered behind her lace hanky. Elias slammed his fist on the armrest. Blasphemy, laughing at the dead. No, Pastor, Marcus said, wiping his eyes, just seeing the light she always preached. Actions got consequences. Timothy bolted, muttering about ungrateful apostates. Elias followed, dignity in tatters. The dollar bills, crisp. Harlan had insisted, fluttering from his pocket like confetti at a funeral. Word flew faster than a revival tent fire. By Vespers, Macon hummed. Did you hear? Eve stuck it to Shiloh. The Telegraph went a front-page story. Devout widow's will sparks church controversy. With the photo of the steeple against stormy skies. Social media erupted. Facebook groups like Macon Mamas lit up with memes. Evelyn's ambrosia salad labeled Sweet Revenge. The dollar bill photoshopped onto a prosperity gospel book cover. Shiloh Sunday service was a ghost town. Pews empty save for the diehards. The choir reduced to a quartet warbling off key. Elias thundered from the pulpit. Betrayal, like Judas with his 30 pieces. But the flock shifted uneasy. Whispers rippled. Where was you when she needed a ride? The capital campaign stalled. Pledges retracted, donors defecting to Methodist or Episcopal folds. The sanctuary of hope had finished, a concrete skeleton mocking the sky. Meanwhile, the Harriet Tubman Center bloomed. $187,000 bought a new van for shuttling moms to job interviews, a computer lab for GED classes, and a rooftop garden where women planted collards in hope. Director, a fierce woman named Dr. Lena Washington, sent photos to Harlan. Smiling faces, tiny hands in soil. Sister Hargrove's legacy, she wrote, feeding the least as she wished. Marcus visited the center monthly, his toddler now a gangly 5-year-old, learning to read with books Evelyn had earmarked. Grandma's Eve would love this, he'd say, watching the kids chase fireflies at dusk. Mrs. Lula May volunteered, her deviled eggs a staple at the center's potlucks. Even Gladys thawed, dropping off quilt sheet piece from Evelyn's scraps. 2 years on, in the spring of 2023, Shiloh teetered. Elias retired amid whispers of embezzlement. Tithes funneled to a timeshare in Myrtle Beach. Timothy jumped ship to a megachurch in Atlanta, preaching radical grace to Botox suburbs. The church sold the half-built center to a developer for condos, the proceeds barely covering debts. A new pastor, a young woman from Spelman, fire in her veins, renamed it Shiloh Community Fellowship. No more silos, she declared. We're about service, not show. Evelyn's grave under the dogwood stayed tended. Marcus with his clippers, Marie with crepe myrtle posies. On her stone, servant of the least, Psalm 37:4. No fanfare, just truth. In Macon, they still tell the tale over Waffle House hash browns or at the fall fair where the ambrosia flows freer than bourbon. Evelyn Hargrove, they'll say, clinking glasses, taught them heaven ain't paved with pledges. It's walked with feet that show up. And in the quiet nights, when the humid breeze stirs the oaks, you can almost hear her soprano, clear as a bell. Fret not, y'all, justice comes sweet as pie. But Evelyn's story didn't end with the will. It echoed in the lives she touched, a ripple turning to wave. Take little Aisha, one of the Tubman Center's first scholars, a single mom's daughter, braids flying as she aced her SATs. Funded by Evelyn's dollars, Aisha headed to Emory on a full ride, majoring in social work. That white lady from Macon, she got ghosted by her church, so she built one with her ghost. That's legacy. Or Marcus, who parlayed his bequest into night classes at Middle Georgia State. In 2024, he was youth director at the revamped Shiloh, not the old guard's puppet, but a leader forging programs for the overlooked, rides for elders, meals for the homebound. Miss Eve showed me, he'd say at orientation, faith ain't words, it's showing up when the storm hits. And even Harlan Beecham found grace in the aftermath. Semi-retired, he volunteered pro bono at the center, drafting incorporations for women's co-ops. Evelyn dragged me kicking into the light, he chuckled over coffee with Lena Washington. Except my soul needed more than contracts, needed compassion. And the church? Shiloh Fellowship thrived, smaller but soulful. The new pastor, Reverend Jasmine Reed, hung Evelyn's photo in the narthex, a black and white from the 90s, her in a floral dress smiling mid-hymn. Beneath, the least of these. Attendance climbed with potlucks revived, ambrosia mandatory, coconut flakes a sacrament. No more mega projects, instead a van fund for hurricane relief, echoing the storm that started it all. On the 5th anniversary of her passing, March 2026, the fellowship held a remembrance. Rain pattered the tin roof like applause as folks gathered. Marie in the front row, her gumbo steaming on the welcome table. Aisha, home from grad school, reading psalms. Marcus leading the youth choir in amazing grace, their voices a tapestry of timbre and triumph. Reverend Reed closed with James 1:27. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless as this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress. As the amen faded, a breeze slipped through the cracked windows, carrying the scent of dogwood and possibility. Evelyn wasn't there in body, but her shade lingered. lingered, posthumous, pointed, profound. In Macon, where storms come and go, she taught the hardest lesson: grace given freely, but grace withheld wisely. And in that withholding, she built something unbreakable, a church not of bricks, but of reckoning.